Joining us now is David Carlucci, former New York State Senator and Democratic strategist. David Carlucci, great to see you again. It seems like we're now getting a clearer idea of who wants to be president in 2028 and which Democrat is really going for it. California Governor Gavin Newsom, he's certainly eyeing it off. He's launched his podcast, This is Gavin Newsom, and his first episode, he brought on conservative Charlie Kirk and straight up asked him for advice. Take a listen.
What do you do? Seriously, Charlie Kirk, give us some advice.
Get better ideas, Governor.
Is it
for
ideas?
example, I mean, if you want to, you have an opportunity to, run to the middle and seize this mantle. Obviously, You're talking to me of all people.
Yeah.
So, you right now should come out and be like, you know what? The young man who's about to win the state championship in the long jump in female sports, that shouldn't happen. You as the governor should step out and say no.
No, and I appreciate
But would you do something like that? Would you say no men in female sports?
Well, I think it's an issue of fairness. I completely agree with you on that. It is an issue of fairness.
So
it's deeply unfair.
So for the first time there, we heard from Gavin Newsom that biological men in women's sports is unfair. Do you agree with that?
Well, look, I think it's great that Newsom is having these guests on from different opinions. And I think when we talk about these issues, we should debate both sides. And I think that's what's missing, particularly in American politics today, is that if you show any type of sympathy to another side of the story, that's somehow perceived as weakness. And this is a problem on the left as well as the right. And so I think with Newsom, who's obviously seen as a progressive liberal politician, to have these right-wing politicians and thought leaders on his show, I think is really a great step forward and something that I hope more people will emulate that want to seek the presidency or any high-level position in the United States.
So what do you think? Do you agree with Gavin Newsom? It's unfair for biological men to be in women's sports?
Yeah, I think it should be pretty clear. We don't want biological men playing in female sports. It's a very small percentage of the population where that even exists. And I think, unfortunately,
why
it's been
are you
used
saying
as
this
a red
now? Do you think you kind of missed an opportunity last year? If that's what you believe?
I think what's happened. No, I think what's happened is this is taken way out of context. I think that I support, like many Democrats and hopefully some Republicans, support trans people's rights to all types of things.
Yeah, of course.
And when you have something like
the
five
specific
athletes
issue
out of
is men in women's
500,000,
sports. So I don't understand how that's been taken out of context.
Well, it's been taken out of context in the idea that this is somehow a bread and butter issue, an issue that Americans are really focused on, that impacts their lives.
It absolutely does. It impacts females.
And that's what I'm saying. It affects your life when there's 5 people out of 500,000 that are playing sports on the college level, that impacts your life. I mean, I think that's just a disagreement. And I think it's something what does impact Americans' lives are many issues that I'd love to talk about tonight that really are in front and center. And we do have the opportunity to talk about and vote on. Instead, when things are going south for someone's political agenda, they want to bring up this red herring issue. And I think that's what it is. It's been a red herring.
It's interesting to see finally where you are getting some common sense from Democrats. And I will give Gavin Newsom some credit. I will give him some credit for having Charlie Kirk on the podcast and actually listening to the other side, because I believe that the Democrats need probably all the help they can get at the moment. Do you think that the Democrats were just too far left and that's why they had such a brutal result in the 2024 election? And are we going to see in the future them making their way closer to the centre, which we're starting to see with now we're being told for the first time that it is actually unfair for men to compete in women's sports?
Well, I think that this is something where most Democrats are in the middle. And what we've seen is, unfortunately, on the other side, the Republicans go way off the cliff. Right now, the reason why I say that is because if you talk to Democrats, there is a strategy, there is a plan in terms of what they stand for and believe in. When you talk to Republicans, there's nothing that they won't do if Donald Trump says to do it. And a perfect example is at the joint meeting of Congress, or the State of the Union, we'll refer to it as. They had Republicans just get up and clap on pieces of legislation that they voted for when Donald Trump was bashing it, like the CHIPS Act that had 24 Republican support, and they get up and clap like trained seals. They have to do whatever Donald Trump says. And that's unfortunate because he's doing a lot of things that he just did not campaign on. He talked about lowering the price of consumer goods, and instead what he's doing are inflationary measures that will increase those costs. And that's very unfortunate. And the biggest problem is just that we don't know what's next. It's totally erratic. The secretaries in his cabinet aren't sure what's going on. Members of Congress don't know what's going on. And that causes uncertainty that trickles down to the rest of the world with this trade war. And that uncertainty will lead, unfortunately, to a recession. And we can debate the merits in terms of these policy procedures. But one of the biggest problems is we just don't know what Donald Trump is going to do. And that causes this uncertainty and this problem. So, yes, I disagree with Donald Trump on many issues. But at least if you had that certainty that you can campaign on one thing and you follow through on that, that's something. But then having this unprovoked trade war with Australia, with Canada, the list goes on with our allies, just doesn't make sense. And we're scratching our head to say, why are you doing this when you said you would lower prices, not increase them?
Well, Trump's first inflation report is in. It is better than expected, and it is reversing 4 straight months of rising inflation under Biden. But you did bring up how the Republicans handled themselves while Trump was addressing Congress. You were criticizing them for applauding. What about the Democrats? You know, so many of them did not clap their hands at really key critical moments when we heard from DJ Daniel, a cancer survivor, when Laken Riley was being honoured. Many of them sat there, frowns on their faces, couldn't even bring themselves to applaud at key moments like that. We have heard from Donald Trump, who has criticised the Democrats for this.
The Democrats have no clue. You saw that the other night during the speech. 2 young women were slaughtered by illegal aliens. 1 young man has very serious cancer and many other problems. When you look at the people up there, they all had difficulty, very serious difficulty. But when we're talking about 2 young girls, beautiful young girls, Laken Riley, you know the whole story. That evening was a disaster for the Democrats, in my opinion. And I would mention, and I'd see 2 mothers that were inconsolable as they stood, crying. Their daughters have been absolutely just destroyed, killed, viciously killed. And the young man who loves the police departments, he had cancer and has cancer, very bad cancer. There wasn't from people sitting there, Democrats, there wasn't a hand clap. Nobody stood. They were just stone-faced. These people are sick. There's something wrong with them. There was no standing for anybody. The only thing they liked is when they heard about the death taking place with Ukraine. They were happy about that.
Is it disappointing? Were you disappointed? Do you think the Democrats just really missed an opportunity to show some unity?
Well, yeah, I think it's a distraction. I want people to focus in on what Donald Trump is actually saying. I think that's the best strategy, to hear from his mouth that he's talking about the disturbance that we Americans are going to feel because of his actions. They need to listen closely. And I agree, this distraction, but this has gone on in American politics. And you didn't hear Donald Trump complaining about the Republicans that wouldn't stand for Joe Biden. But the bottom line here is that Donald Trump will always look for someone to blame. And it doesn't matter what the Democrats do, he's going to blame them. He got up there and talked about hypotheticals, that if he did all of these things, that Democrats still wouldn't stand for him. Well, respect and decency go 2 ways. In that speech, you had the president of the United States calling these elected Democrats lunatics. He said that. So I agree that it was not right for the Democrats to be disrespectful. And just like it's not right for Donald Trump to be disrespectful to other politicians. So I think we should all gather in and demand more from our politicians to treat both of these offices, whether it's Congress or the President of the United States, with the level of decency and respect that that office deserves. I think it does no one any service to have that type of disrespect in any chamber. And I think most importantly, it's just a distraction from the real messages to say, what is going on here? And Donald Trump will spend his time blaming instead of actually talking about the policies that he's putting forth and what they're going to do.
David Carlucci, we have to leave it there. Really appreciate you joining me on Power Hour. Thank you for your time.
Great to be with you. Thanks.